Good evening and good morning, and a very warm welcome to this special plenary session on scaling deployment of digital agriculture policy and partnerships. This session today actually concludes our two-day global dialogue, where we've had the opportunity to immerse ourselves in hearing the advancements in global solutions across inputs, farm monitoring, post-harvest protocols, and biotech, trying to accelerate the process of scaling deployment of new innovations. We've had the fortune of being able to go through the last 2 days with 25 plus global speakers from 9 countries, being generous with their time and thinking. One of the recurring themes across all the sessions was the opportunities data and digital can unlock. And that really makes this session even more relevant, special, and important. As we all know, farms create a huge amount of data, which can be used for a wide variety of purposes. But most importantly, they ultimately benefit farmers in their decision-making process, helping them run businesses that are more efficient and effective. This data, however, as we all know, often sits in silos, and the absence of open agriculture data inhibits the pace of innovation and transformation in the sector. To discuss this today, we have a very eminent panel. I'm delighted to mention that we have with us Professor Ramesh Chand. Professor Ramesh Chand, as we all know, is member Niti Aayog, and one of the senior most persons in terms of both policy and formulation, policy formulation and practice, bringing extensive experience to us in terms of looking at both long-term sustainability and systemic transformation of agriculture. Professor Chand, it is really an absolute pleasure and a privilege to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We also have with us Sri Jayesh Ranjan, Principal Secretary, Industries and Commerce, Information Technology Department, Government of Telangana. Under his visionary guidance, the state government of Telangana has conceptualized a very interesting project called Sagu Bagu, which has been aimed at creating a cross-section of the agri-tech industry and the startup community to explore the potential of deploying emerging technologies to make a difference to agriculture in the state. And we really look forward to listening to you and learning from you. We're delighted to have with us Mr. Andrew Leber, Executive Director of the Global Open Data Initiative for Agriculture and Nutrition, GODAN. Mr. Leber has managed numerous projects on behalf of large corporations and subsequently within the UN and the World Bank. In this context, he's played a senior role in the design and implementation of major reforms with a number of agencies, including the WHO, UNICEF, and has extensive wide international experience. He has been the first executive director of GODAN since September 2015. Welcome, Mr. Leber. We also have with us Dr. Vijay Raj Mohan, Director Digital Agriculture and Chief Data Officer at the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. He's spearheading the work, which is really what we're here to talk about around creation of the digital infrastructure in the Ministry of Agriculture, which will help create the unifying platform for farmers, helping them to really provide end-to-end services across the value chain. We're also joined by Mr. Ranveer Chandra, Managing Director, Research for an Industry CTO of Agri-Food at Microsoft. Ranveer has published more than 90 papers and filed over 150 patents, and has been recently recognized as one of the most disruptive forces in the space in terms of bringing innovation when it comes to climate and agriculture. We also have with us Mr. Anand Patil, CTO of Cisco Systems. He's a Senior Director at Systems Engineering and CTO of Cisco India. In this role, he works with customers and partners across India and SAARC to provide technical leadership and strategic architectural direction aligned to digital transformation priorities. And Cisco is actively engaged also with the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of looking at the smart agriculture platform. And finally, Mr. Shivakumar, who's the chairman of this conference, group head of agri and IT businesses at ITC Limited. It is under his leadership that we have all heard of the eChopal initiative, which was developed and executed. And it is now looking at a more integrated eChopal 4.0, moving to a mobile-based platform to address the elements of farmer profitability when looking at the equation of productivity, quality, and reducing risk. So with this eminent panel, before we actually begin the proceedings and I hand over to the chair, I have another special privilege, and that privilege is to share the results of the startup competition that we had earlier yesterday. And we're just going to bring that up. So this is the third edition of the Ag Life. We had problem statements that were shared by industry. And these problem statements, we received 80 odd submissions, which we went through, we curated, And 12 startups were identified who came in and pitched during this time. From these 12 startups, they went through a very rigorous process yesterday with a very, very eminent jury. As part of this jury, we had with us Mr. Shivakumar. We also had with us Mr. Emmanuel Murray. And you will see a lot of animated faces because these are live shots as they were sitting through the jury. And then, of course, we had with us also Mr. Subadeep Sanyal from Omnivore and Siddharth Barbaj from Social Alpha. So big thank you to this jury that really patiently navigated through the various interesting innovations and helped us to distill and filter some of the most brightest emerging next generation startups that we hope will pave the way for innovation. With that, it's now our pleasure to be able to announce the winners of the startup as part of the startup contest. Our second runner-up as part of this was i7. i7 is an extremely innovative startup which is working on a blend of biomolecules and bringing that to rural India. Congratulations, well done, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward in this area. Moving on to the first runner-up. Can we have Natura Crop Care is a very interesting, almost the world's first pheromone-based system that traps and kills female and male fruit flies. And there's a lot of interest in sort of seeing how these applications can help us in terms of being able to mitigate both risk and create more value for farmers. So congratulations to the team. And we look forward to continuing to engage with you as you go through this journey. And finally, to the winner of this startup competition. Leber, through their services and through their drone solutions, is providing extremely innovative solutions in terms of being able to bring spraying solutions to farmers. And very recently, they just finished and completed their first pilot with ICMR in terms of delivering vaccines. So we've seen a spectrum of winners and across both hardware, both looking at on-farm solutions, and really the diversity of what we've seen this year, as we were mentioning earlier, is very, very different. Congratulations to all of you. CII will continue to support you in this journey. These trophies will be with you shortly as part of this exercise. We will also look at incubation opportunities and evaluate that with Social Alpha. We will continue to get mentoring for a large circuit of international ag leaders and pilot opportunities with the FPOs that CII is working with. So congratulations once again, and we look forward to continuing to associate with you. With that, to commence the proceedings of the session, I would now like to hand over to Mr. Shivakumar. Over to you.
Thank you, Mitu. So let me add my own words of congratulations also to all the winners of the pitch that we saw yesterday. Certainly, it was a tough choice with all the other 9 participants almost there in terms of their own innovativeness as well. So again, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from my side as well to all the participants, as well as especially to the dignitaries of this session, Professor Ramesh Chan, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Mr. Vijay Rajmohan, Mr. Andre Leber, and Mr. Ranvi Chandra is going to join shortly, and Mr. Anand Patil. So that announcement of winners of the Innovators Pitch is a great start for this closing plenary of this 3-day event. These young entrepreneurs demonstrate that innovation is alive and kicking in the agtech space, and certainly it augurs well for the sector. Yesterday and the day before, we have seen the innovators from around the world on several areas like soil and water management, farm monitoring, mechanization and robotics, post-harvest technologies, and advanced biotechnology. Several sessions and so many speakers that Mitu had briefly mentioned about. At the inaugural of this event, the goals for AgTech in India at 75 with that team were well set in that inaugural session. Unlike India at 25 or even at 50, when self-sufficiency of food was a key goal, the goalposts have moved somewhat as we are reaching India at 75, with India having accomplished the self-sufficiency goal at an aggregate level. So two goals are so critical in India at 75. The first and foremost is raising farmers' income as a real big priority. And that certainly can be achieved by making agricultural production more demand responsive to cater to the evolving needs of the domestic Indian consumer in terms of variety or quality or food safety or convenience, or even the new preferences for natural and organic and so on, as also the opportunity in the export markets. And we saw that technology can play a very important role here, whether it is in connecting communities of consumers to clusters of producers, personalized agronomic advisory based on real-time monitoring of crops, AI-based farm management solutions, facilitation of inputs and various services and finances. So many of which we have seen over the 2 days. The second important objective is to try and make the agricultural production nature positive, as in the conservation of natural resources like water and topsoil through appropriate practices, or making agriculture and farmers climate resilient to be able to cope with the extreme weather events. Once again, technology, we saw over these 2 days that it can play a very vital role in enabling a nature positive production as well, whether it is precision farming aided by IoT, farm mechanization, or remote sensing and big data to provide early warnings on the weather events. So I think all of these certainly play a good facilitatory role in achieving these two important objectives of India at 75. And like already mentioned, over the 2 days, many tech focus sessions across the full value chain from soil to post-harvest were held, highlighting the potential to leverage technologies to achieve these two goals. But in order to translate these technologies into reality on ground, and also doing it on scale in keeping with the requirement, what came out clearly in these deliberations are 5 components that must be part of the evolving ecosystem. And this session is designed to pretty much close all the loops on these 5 areas. The first was the need for solution integrators who can stitch multiple point solutions into end-to-end services with farmer at the center. And like Mr. Sanjeev Puri explained in the inaugural session, the super app of ITC called Mars as part of the eChopal initiative is one such solution integrator. So I will not really dwell on that as to what potential and necessity there is for solution integrators in the ecosystem. The second important component was the FPOs, or farm produce organizations on the ground, as primary vehicles for delivering these solutions to the farmers. We at CII are working closely with government and industry to promote and strengthen FPOs at scale, to develop them as models of excellence, there have been FPOs, and certainly more are getting created. But barring a few, many are still struggling to deliver benefits to the farmers or to be sustainable on their own. Many of the new guidelines and additional financial support announced by the government earlier in the year certainly will go a long way in strengthening. But more importantly, the facilitation and handholding is very critical, and that's a role that CII recommits to do. And the third important component is the importance of data sharing and interoperability standards. The efforts of central government in rolling out the Agri-Stack and IDEA ecosystem earlier in the year are noteworthy in this regard. I'm glad we have Mr. Vijay Rajmohan, who can talk about the next steps in the IDEA after we have seen the consultation paper and the feedback that's received by the government. And before Mr. Rajmohan, we will hear from Mr. Andre Leber, who will share with us the details of the global open data initiative for agriculture and nutrition. And now it's been a few years old, and it can certainly have interesting lessons for us in terms of what we could be doing and how we can engage in this space. The fourth component of the desired ecosystem is the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration so that we can deal with the whole of the agri system. Besides all the other solutions we have covered in the earlier tech-focused sessions, in this session, we have a digital perspective of the ecosystem that we will hear from both the hardware as well as software perspectives. We'll have Mr. Ranveer Chandra of Microsoft and Mr. Anand Patil of Cisco Systems covering those areas. And we'll have the fifth component, which is the crucial role of the state government in orchestrating public-private producer partnerships and integrating technology into value chain clusters. And we have Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, the Principal Secretary to the Government of Telangana, which is a leading state in this action, as Mithu had already mentioned in the introductory remarks. And so therefore, the role of state is something that we will see as the fifth component. Like I said earlier, all this must be done in somewhat a systems thinking manner with farmer at the center. And so we have a great honor of having Professor Ramesh Chand, member of Niti Aayog, who will provide that apex view of the whole agri and food system. And so I think with whatever that we have seen over the 2 days across technology, these 5 components really become important in creating a desired ecosystem. So, so we'll go into the session with those opening context setting. May I now request Mr. Andre Leber to give his remarks and tell us about Godan.
Thank you very much, Professor Kumar. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to address this distinguished audience and share with you a little bit of our experience in Godan, the Global Open Data Initiative for Agriculture and Nutrition. Even though our name says data in the middle of it, we define ourselves as a knowledge sharing platform. Using data as the key tool to share data, to combine data, and therefore to trigger innovations that could lead to improvement in technology, but also in farming practices. Because data does not necessarily mean a bigger robot or some mechanical equipment that will help. It can mean that, of course, but it can also mean more simply better farming practices also originating from the knowledge that arises from data. So that's just one clarification I wanted to share with you before I share with you this a few thoughts that I have put together for you. I've just done that. Yeah. Our chair just referred to some of the points I wanted to raise here, because when we think of data or technology, we're in relation to agriculture, we think in terms of producing more food, as if this was the sole goal behind that. But there's much more than that. There are, in fact, in my opinion, at least 4 important goals that need to be part of that. One is, of course, to help produce enough food for everyone. As we know, worldwide, the need for food in this century alone, globally speaking, has increased by 50% or so. So we need to make available 50% more food than we used to in the previous century. So that's quite a challenge per se. But beyond that, we need not just to produce more food, but we need to make sure that the food we produce is nutritious enough. Otherwise, we're going to eat more, but become more malnourished. So I'll come back to that. 3, we need to also produce cost-effective food. It's not just to produce more and more nutritive, but it has to be cost-effective also. Why? Because 1, there's competition around the world. And second, to make any initiative sustainable, it has to be cost-effective. So that's also true in terms of food production. And ultimately, beyond all of that, what the goal is to improve the quality of life of all Indians or all people in general. So that's the ultimate goal. And looking at India and its incredible potential in agriculture, we can easily visualize the potential that agriculture has and will have in the Indian economy in the future. We know that India has the 2nd largest farmland or agricultural land in the world, right behind the US. It's also a powerhouse in the production of some foods, whether it is milk, wheat, and other crops. So there's a potential there, if we can improve productivity, to increase exports, lower costs in the country, and bringing more cash in the country. Now, here are some good and some bad news. The good news was just referred to by the previous speaker, which is that over time, I'm referring now to the graph on the right-hand side, while the population in India has been increasing regularly, as that's what you can see on the black line there, the main crops that are being produced have seen their production increase as well. So that's how food security was achieved in India. So that's the good news. Now, the less good news is if we look on the left-hand side, especially this first graph that we have here, it talks about agricultural productivity in different parts of the world, referred to in terms of tons per hectare in cereals on the left, which is what this graph represents. What we can see is worldwide, the average worldwide productivity in terms of tons per hectare has almost doubled. You could say has doubled between the 60s and 2000, almost doubled. When you look at India's productivity, you can see that the trend has been similar, so which is very encouraging. But what is less encouraging is that we need to not just increase, but ideally we should at least have a productivity similar to what the world has. Otherwise, we're becoming less competitive as time goes. Now, Now, the good news that are on this graph, nevertheless, is the potential that there is in India. If you look at these two, which are China and the United States, this is their productivity per hectare. As you can see, it goes up to almost 8 tons per hectare in the case of the United States. So when you compare that to 2.5 tons for India, there's quite a gap. So, but for me, I don't see this as a criticism. I see this as a potential. In fact, that's what the recent estimates from FAO just confirmed, that in India, the actual productivity level achieved in different crops or different parts of the country in agriculture go between 30 and 60% of their full potential. So that means for some types of crops, there's a potential to double production using the same land that we're using now. So there's an incredible potential if we just use a little bit more data, we combine data and we transform that in technology and farm practices. Now, one obstacle is climate change. I'm sorry, I took this graph from Africa, but the principle is the same. If you look on the left-hand side, when these two graphs there, what you see is that you have the months and then the volume of precipitations of rain that comes. In Africa, normally, it used to be like that. You have the rainy season and then the dry season. So the rain comes in the first and then stops in the second. But what you can see in the more recent years, which are on the right, is that now rain precipitations are confused. So where it's not supposed to rain, it's raining. And where it's supposed to rain a lot, it doesn't rain that much. So that makes it very difficult for farmers to know when is the right time to plant, when is the right time to irrigate, where to irrigate, and what to do. So of course, now we have precision agriculture. We also have precision irrigation wherever irrigation is available, but it's not available everywhere. So we have to rely on the rain a lot. So weather data in this case makes a big difference. And if you combine that with other types of inputs, and in this case, this example here, this is a picture taken in the very same spot from 6 years difference. This is in Morocco actually, but again, principle is the same. You can see the difference it makes when you start using data in this and new farming practices. In this case, they introduced no-till farming and better water management, among others, and also better inputs management. So as you can see, there's a big difference. And this person is in charge of the cooperative there near Meknes. They are producing essentially millet and wheat. And during these 6 years, they managed to triple their production of wheat and quintuple their production of millet. So on the same surface of land. So you see the potential thanks to data, especially if you make it across silos and combine it and find a way to convey the knowledge that arises from that to the farmers, you can make a huge difference. It's important we do that for all the reasons that were mentioned earlier, but also because we have no choice in a way. Global warming, climate change, global warming is a reality, and we can't really avoid that. But it's very worrisome when you start looking at what that does, what kind of impact that does on the different types of crops. I'll just point here, India wheat, which is a big crop here in India. What this graph represents is for any degree of warming compared to the last century, the impact it has on the crops in terms of percentage of change in yields. So if I look at India wheat, I see that with 1 degree higher than the last century, that's basically where we are now. Wheat production is penalized by 5%. If the warming goes to 2 degrees, then the impact will be 25% on India wheat. If it goes to 3 degrees, the impact would be 45%. And of course, if there was a catastrophe scenario of 4 degrees above last century, it would be almost 70% reduction in wheat production. So as you can see, this is very important. And it brings us to many things. Of course, to finding ways to reduce emissions all across the board, including those coming from agriculture, but also looking at the other types of data, namely genetics, so that we can improve the types of inputs, the type of seeds that we use, and even in other fields like the dairy industry. I know there is interesting genetic work being done between India and New Zealand with the goal of increasing the volume of milk that is produced by the cows that we have in India. Now, this is another consequence of global warming that people don't know or are less familiar with sometimes, and where data, again, work combining genetics and different practices can help address, which is that with global warming, especially with CO2 emissions increase, the nutritional value of the crops is also affected, not just the volume of crops, because it becomes more difficult to grow things when it gets warmer and there's less water available, but the crops we produce are less nutritious. In particular, the two that are severely affected are wheat and paddy rice, which are also 2 important crops in India. So just to give you an idea of what that represents, if we don't do anything, if we just continue as normal, so to speak, according to recent estimates, by 2050 in India, we run the risk of having 50 million people that would become zinc deficient, 38 million people becoming protein deficient, and possibly more worrisome, 500 million women and children with iron deficiency. So as you can see, minerals are especially affected by that. So there again, more research and more work needs to be done using data on crops. Data is plenty. India is fortunate because you have a number of very high caliber research centers in India. The government of India invests a lot of money, and so does the private sector in research. But the idea here is to break the silos, to combine the data that is available, make it more interoperable, and even go reach outside of India, as in the New Zealand example I gave earlier. This is an example of the data that's available from INRA in France, but it also has a lot of data that is of interest to India, so whether genetic or plant diseases, etc. So breaking silos within India and with the rest of the world is the goal. Another goal also is to bring data to the farmers, because ultimately they're the ones who are making the difference. What is very nice with the evolution of technology in the last 10 years in particular is that the cost of technology has gone down drastically, and tons of very interesting tools like mobile phones and applications were designed to bring the benefits of data, especially of big data, to the hands of the farmers. These are just two examples using visual recognition to help farmers identify infestations, whether it is pests or weeds that could interfere with their crops. But there is a plethora of applications like that. There are many in local languages, and some even use just pictograms for those who can't read so much. So breaking the silos, but also bringing data or the knowledge arising from data directly to the farmers. My last slide here, and to end in a positive or encouraging note, what this graph represents is the different parts of the world. The dark blue is in 2019, while the light blue is 2018. And it is a score that has been given by the World Economic Forum. They're giving a score every year to every country or every region in the world as to how, what is the tech adoption, how receptive they are, and how active they are in incorporating tech in what they do, and in particular in agriculture. What we can see is that East Asia and the Pacific is among the champions. And not only among the champions, it's continuing to improve. Because in 2018, the score for the region was 67, and 2019, it's already at 70. And what is nice is that if you look around the other regions to try to see how to compare, you can see that the only one that's equal is Europe and North America. So our region is now almost beating Europe and North Africa. So over time, that should give us a nice edge, a competitive edge vis-a-vis all other regions, and put us at par with Europe and North America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leber, for showing as to what could happen, and therefore the role of data and the importance of interoperability of the systems to use data and averting whatever challenges that we may face. So with that, let me now request Mr. Vijay Rajmohan to talk to us about IDEA and digital ecosystem and the next steps that the government of India is looking at.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Leber's presentation was very useful. For me also, it was an eye-opener. Thankful to CA also for this opportunity, and all those distinguished participants. So coming back to the Government of India's initiatives, as you are aware, we are adopting a simultaneous approach. One is this IDEA digital architecture we are firming up. It is already firmed up. And without waiting for it, we have already started working on the Agri-Stack. So we have already built a farmers database. Almost 50% of the database is now ready. So we have taken out the data which is available in various data silos of Government of India, linked them, stitched them, and then verified with the land records. And the process is on. So of course, we face a lot of challenges. It's a kind of new thing for the Government of India, the state governments, the different departments. But we know that all of us realize the importance of this, and then we are working towards achieving this at the earliest. And in this process, again, another major initiative is we are open to new ideas, collaborations. Many of you would be aware, Government of India is collaborating with a lot of private sector tech and agri-tech businesses in this, so that the talent which is available in the private sector is used towards this. So we have entered into MOU with around 10 entities so far. Some of them like ITC, they are there, Cisco, we are collaborating with them. POCs have been initiated across the country. So far in 9 states, the POCs have commenced. So the whole idea is, not to wait for any one thing to, be complete, because we know it's a learning thing for us and it will take some time. So we don't want to hold the other thing. So simultaneously we are proceeding. The idea architecture as of now, it has been approved. The implementation phase we have to start. For that, we are now will formally launch the idea architecture shortly with the minister. He will be unveiling this for the country. Already all the consultations are over. We have taken up the suggestions which came from various stakeholders, including farmers, FPOs, tech companies, other stakeholders in this. And the implementation phase will start next. But without waiting for it, we already started working. In fact, due to the pandemic, COVID pandemic, our work got a little slow because a lot of disruptions were there in between. Our focus was to ensure that the ministry runs without any disruption. And we did that. The entire ministry worked overtime during the pandemic to ensure that there is no disruption in this sector. And so in that process, slightly these efforts, we couldn't achieve as per our original envisaged target, but we are on the job. So in fact, we ourselves are finding it so interesting to see that once we have embarked on this journey, we realize how much data is living in various departments, divisions, bodies, and then how much value can be there for the farmers once we take up all this data and then integrate them and then analyze the data and then develop solutions. So for that itself, so without waiting for the database to complete, whatever we have done, we have started using the private sector initiative and sharing some of the data with the private sector, and then develop the POC so that we can understand what kind of solutions and services can be built using this data. So Government of India is progressing on this, and then we are also working on a digital agriculture mission, which is awaiting cabinet approval. So once it comes, further all these initiatives will get a big fillip. So our whole focus is how to increase farmers' income. So in that, how to get a better price for the farmer, how to reduce the costs for the farmer, how to improve the quality of the produce, how to increase the productivity. Everything is so. The whole focus is how we can leverage technology and improve the farmers' incomes. So this is the focus. In fact, all these initiatives started flowing from that goal. And based on the doubling of farmer income report, we amended our national e-governance plan in agriculture. Now Government of India is pushing various technologies into the sector, including drones, robotics, AI-driven systems and solutions, machine learning, big data, blockchain technologies. So we are repeatedly in touch with the state governments. Already, last year some 10 state governments came forward and initiated various projects. So of course, again, for the state governments also, this is a new area, but Government of India, from our side, we are pushing this, so that we again, all these initiatives, in a way, they are all having a golden thread among them. So for each, like when we are doing a POC, the local government is aware, the district officials are aware. First time the district officials are saying, oh, we never realized that, using technology, our farmers can, market their produce or get a better value for the produce, or know where to supply their produce, So, this is a big eye-opener for the officials at various levels. So now, slowly, this understanding is sitting in across the policy maker level and policy implementer level, that this technology could be the next revolution in this sector. Whatever success we achieved in Green Revolution, we can take it further and then improve it further, make the lives of farmers better, bring in ease of farming through this, technology and data-driven technology. So Government of India, now we are proactively pushing. This year also, many state governments have come forward to us. Of course, again, many times they come and say that, we never realized this, or, we have doubt where this technology will be available, how we can use this technology to further improve. So, but the gates have been opened now, and we are on a path which is irreversible, which will improve in the coming years. And then I as a person involved in this whole machinery, I can visualize down the years, this will greatly revolutionize the Indian agriculture sector and provide better value for everybody in this chain. So this is what we are doing. So as I said, to sum up, once again, idea, yes, we have firmed up. It is going to be unveiled now for the country, and then we will start the implementation phase for that. What the UPI did for the payments and other things, this kind of we are the data exchange platform which will be created through this idea architecture. It will envisage that. In that, again, we are in consultation with the Ministry of Information and Technology to firm up all that, how we will engage the private sector with this, how we will ensure data privacy while sharing the data, ensure that the farmers data privacy is protected. Again, what kind of modalities we will formulate in this, how whether we will monetize or how we will get data and then give data, so that further and further this data exchange will improve. So this is going on. And then farmers database, as I said, that right now we are taking the data of the landowning farmers, so which we have 50% built, but we are also simultaneously thinking of the next phase, where in consultation with the state governments, we will go beyond this also. We will go beyond the approved landowner data. So because we know that a lot of farmers are there who don't legally own the land, but they are there. So in the next phase, we will take that also. That also, the groundwork, the thinking has started already. We will start that also. We will not wait for this first phase to be completed. In consultation with the state government, we will initiate that also. And then we will also, as I said, that we will engage with both public and private entities, so that whatever talent is there, whatever ideas or other things can flow into this, we will take that. And then again, another important thing is we will also go beyond the pure agriculture sector also when we create this farmers database. That is in a future phase, but we are thinking of putting that kind of foundation now, so that down the year we will not only take the agriculture database, or since we have visualized that idea architecture has visualized a federated database, all these will be linked. So finally, for whoever is involved in this sector, the data which is available in various domains will flow, will enrich, and then it will also help both government as well as private sector to develop solutions which can make the lives of our farmers better. This is our idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay Rajmohan. I think the most important takeaway for me is that the government is looking at building the aircraft while flying it, which is the most appropriate method for digital transformation rather than trying to do this sequentially. And we much appreciate that. So with that, let me move on to Mr. Jayesh Ranjan to share with us the perspective from a state government, as Telangana state is one of the most progressive in the area of digital agriculture. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shiv Kumar Garu. Greetings to fellow panelists, respects to Professor Ramesh Chand, and greetings to all the participants. I would like to begin by thanking and congratulating CII for putting together such a useful and educative seminar, and also recognizing that states have a very important role to play in driving this agenda, and obviously giving us, the state of Telangana, a chance to share our experiences. Telangana is one state where, as many of you would know, it's a new state. It got formed 7.5 years ago. And since then, for the past 7 years, 30% of our annual budget, state's budget, is spent on agriculture and related activities, which includes developing the world's largest multi-stage lift irrigation project, which is called Kaleshwaram project, multiple other irrigation projects. We are also the first state to introduce direct benefit transfer to the farmers, which is now replicated throughout the country under the PM Kisan Yojana. We have also invested a lot in creating a very robust agriculture extension mechanism. There is, for instance, for every 5,000 acres, a highly qualified and knowledgeable extension officer. We have created receiving mechanisms which are called Raitu Vedika, and also given them very strong grassroots infrastructure support. So I don't think there is any other state which has spent so much on agriculture and support activities. And of course, all this has been done with just one intention, which Mr. Rajmohan also mentioned, which is to improve farmers' income. And we know that this is a very important national goal. The earlier government also had this on their priority. How do you double farmers' income? The present government also is working towards doubling farmers' income. And in Telangana, we are very conscious of the fact that all this investment which has been made, as I said, 30% of our state's budget, if it does not really end up in improving farmers' income substantially, doubling for sure, but even more if possible, then it will remain a very suboptimal way of spending so much of money and utilizing so much of money. Our whole interest is to ensure that the value capture out of increased production, increased productivity happens as low as possible towards the end of the farmers. And this is something about which we feel that technology can contribute quite a lot. So, and simultaneously, in tandem with the national flagship program called Digital India, we have our own version which is called Digital Telangana. And in Digital Telangana also, one of the important goals that we pursue is to create solutions which actually alleviate or address some of the most pressing problems faced by the common citizen. And like many other states, in Telangana also, agriculture supports the largest form of rural livelihoods. And therefore, we feel that agriculture interventions, technology-enabled agriculture interventions will be the best way of working towards the goal of doubling farmers' income, and also making sense of our Digital Telangana programs. So we have done multiple things using technology to support farming activities, but the flagship program of our state, which Meetuji also pointed out in her introduction, is called Sagu Bagu. Obviously, this is a Telugu term. This was earlier called AI for AI. But we now call it Sagu Bagu because that is something which people understand and relate to very easily. Sagu is cultivation or agriculture, and Bagu is well-being. So how do you introduce farmers' well-being or the cultivators' well-being? That is the name of this program. So basically, we want to deploy technologies, but in an inclusive manner, in a sustainable manner, and in a scalable manner. So it should not end up just in some small pilots here and there. We started this in 2020, and this is a multi-stakeholder initiative. We are leading it. We meaning I am the principal secretary of the Information Technology Department. So we lead it, but obviously the Agriculture Department is a very strong co-collaborator. Agriculture University in Hyderabad is a strong partner, and the whole piece has been put together by World Economic Forum's Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is located here in India, in Bombay. As I said, it started in August 2020, and obviously, I mean, those were difficult days for all of us, but we also made very productive use of that period, the lockdown, etc., by creating a 70-member community with 4 working groups, which worked on different aspects of Sagu Bagu. For instance, on intelligent crop planning, on smart farming, on farm gate to fork. But what I want to emphasize today in my address now is about the 4th working group, which worked on data-driven agriculture. And I completely endorse most of the points which Mr. Lapierre and Mr. Rajmohan spoke about. But I will be trying to share a perspective on how we are making it happen on the ground. So data, we all know, is, as other speakers have also pointed out, how do you make that available? Because scarcity of data and not able to, I mean, for example, we know that agriculture data is confined to the enterprise that collects it or generates it. And the potential value of that data remains undiscovered. There is no structured way of sharing the agriculture information, and much less in an automated and rights protected manner. And similarly, accessing that agriculture data for innovation is a big deterrent because of the cost, effort, and the sheer tedium of it. And obviously, there is no single point of reference. I mean, of course, what the national government, what Mr. Rajmohan spoke about, the national mission, etc. Those things definitely will alleviate many of these deficiencies in a significant way. But at the state level, we have kickstarted the process. So, as I said, there is no single point of reference to get the data required from multiple sources to create integrated and innovative services. So, in the Sagu Bagu project, we have decided that we will set up an Agri-Data Exchange. We call it ADX, and work on it is going on. And obviously, the main objectives of ADX is to connect the providers and consumers of agriculture information in a consent-based manner. So there's no, I mean, there is lots of concerns about how data is being globally used, and we also have seen some very blatant cases of misuse of data. So obviously, there are lots of lessons that we have learned. And therefore, how do you ensure that there is a consent-based sharing, and the sharing is also done in a very secure manner? Similarly, to provide for efficient discovery of agriculture data required for innovation and research. As we all understand, humongous amounts of data is collected, but which of that is relevant for which purpose? We are creating a market enabled process through which the worth of different data pieces will be discovered. And we are also going to use the end-to-end data exchange to facilitate one-on-one data transfers. And therefore, that will create a force multiplier effect. So it is not eventually between just one consumer and one producer, but opportunities to share it on a larger platform is also there. And of course, we will learn about the open standards, open protocols, open APIs in data management from the National Digital Agriculture Ecosystem that Mr. Rajmohan spoke about. And our efforts also hopefully will accelerate the evolution of this National Digital Ecosystem. Similarly, to help the ease of accessing data, we will be deploying multiple emerging technologies. And of course, there'll be adequate safeguards to protect personal data. And some of the data also has commercial value. So we will be enabling the data providers to specify the terms and conditions for sharing of the data. And the purpose and period for this, the data can be used by the consumer. So create a market-driven mechanism through which the worth of that data and a fair price of that data can be found out, and to obviously establish transparency in all the processes related to data exchange. So the status right now is that we have put it right, and of course I must also mention that we have created a very good governance structure where the data explorer, the consent manager, the transaction manager, the API gateway, each of them will have very clear roles, responsibilities, well-defined accountability systems. Similarly, for convenience of usage, we'll be creating an ADEX app for the providers and an ADEX app for the consumers. And hopefully the data service providers, with the help of APIs and the governance structures that we put in place, they will be able to be connected with data consumers. The status is that we have floated the EOI after extensive consultation with the industry, domain experts, etc. And the initial response is very, very positive. 8 proposals have been received and evaluation is underway. So hopefully we will be able to start on-ground deployment in perhaps in a matter of 2 months or so. And this is something which we want to run for at least 4 seasons, so that it is not a one-off kind of a trial. And after we are able to show the effectiveness of this platform over 4 seasons, we should be able to maybe write about it, explain the processes, and hopefully others, whoever are interested, will be prepared to replicate it. As I mentioned, many things that are pioneered in Telangana are eventually replicated at the national level, and we are hopeful that this will be one of it. The last point that I would like to mention is that while we are working with the World Economic Forum in creating ADEX, we have also started partnering with UNDP to jointly initiate the next Gen Gov Data for Policy initiative on food systems. So I'm very happy when Mr. Lapierre was explaining about the way global trends are, the global thinking is regarding agriculture, production, productivity, etc., which is to provide nutritious food, wholesome food, cost-effective food. So UNDP and Telangana government are working together on ways of promoting strategies for anticipatory governance, policy experimentation. And this ADEX platform that we are going to create will also be useful for data-driven journey for policy making regarding food systems. So we also see, I mean, this is at a very early stage, so I can't tell much more than what I have shared, but that is something again which will be very pioneering for our country, that a state government is showcasing how predictive governance, for instance, in Telangana, we want to do what is called crop colonies by regulating crops to ensure that there is no situation in which the market prices fall beyond a sustainable level and farmers are eventually dejected and disappointed. So that can only happen if we have some control over production. And therefore, concepts like anticipatory governance and data-driven policy making will be very useful in that regard. So I personally feel that many transformative works are going on currently using technology, but the importance of data and the foundational role it can play in changing mindsets across board will be very, very important. And I'm very happy that I'm a part of the government setup here in Telangana, which is doing some very interesting work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. J.S. Ranjan. It's indeed very heartening to see the amount of progress that has happened in this area. Very clearly, tomorrow's agriculture cannot be managed with yesterday's institutions. I think what we are hearing is tomorrow's institutions with the foundation as data and data exchange. It will be certainly very appropriate to integrate all of these and see how the states are building, and certainly the early starters like Telangana, which will converge with what we are seeing as the Government of India's initiatives, and with what we are seeing as the technology efforts coming in from the market that we have witnessed over the last 2 days. Thank you. So now we'll move to Professor Ramesh Chand for his keynote address.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar ji. fellow panelist, participant in this session. The three presenters before me has shared very useful information related to digitalization and application of data science in agriculture. We heard international experience and also what government of India is doing in this direction. And the third speaker, Principal Secretary Agriculture, shared with us the use of these innovation they are thinking or applying in case of agriculture. And as we all know that Karnataka, Telangana, and also Andhra Pradesh to some extent, they are the technology savvy state, and they are the front runner, and definitely they will set some good trend for other states to emulate them and to follow in their footsteps. I want to speak on specific issues related to the theme of this session. But before that, just 2-3 remarks about the background of Indian agriculture, which will indicate why we need to use the digitalization, data sciences, and agri-tech initiative in Indian agriculture. There is some commonality between what my friend Andre has mentioned and what I thought I will share with you, but I will avoid repeating what he has already said. Today in India, if we look at what are the most important challenges in agriculture, it is not the growth which is the biggest challenge. That is our analysis, which just shows that there is so much gap between attainable yield and what are actual yields, that there is no threat to achieving 3% growth rate or something around 3% in next 10 years. Now Eastern India is catching up, other states are also catching up, Central India, and our analysis in NITI Aayog indicate that this 3% or more, 3.5% growth rate will be there in the coming decade. But if we look at the growth which is happening in Indian agriculture, I term it as a very costly growth. This growth is accompanied by increase in real cost of production per unit of output. So if we look at cost of cultivation data, it clearly indicates that as productivity is increasing, the real cost of production is also increasing. And it has implication for application of data sciences. Then the second factor which will necessitate application of frontier sciences is that this 3 or 3.5% growth of Indian agriculture, food and agriculture, is not supported by growth in domestic demand. All estimate again indicate that domestic demand is going to increase something between 2 and 2.5, maybe middle value 2.25%. So therefore, India will be forced to look for overseas markets for clearance of its surplus. Otherwise, it's going to have very tough time, which we are already having in case of rice, in case of sugarcane, and it is there to some extent even in case of wheat. So if we have to sell our produce in international market, efficiency and competitiveness are very, very important. If we are not able to improve efficiency and competitiveness and try to push export by giving subsidy, some sort of support, we are going to land into trouble in WTO and also at other places. So efficiency is, I think, the most important challenge and goal of Indian agriculture to improve its competitiveness and also to reduce pressure on fiscal resources to extend support to agriculture. Second is sustainability. Again, I will only share one statistic that 90% water in India, out of the total water used in the country, goes to agriculture sectors. And still we have only 50% area under irrigation. So you can imagine, as we go toward goal of har khet ko pani, that every field has to be provided with irrigation or protective irrigation, then hardly anything will be left for other sectors. So that is other reason, sustainability, that we need to improve efficiency of water use, and others are, of course, health and food safety, but I will not go into detail of those. Because we are not able to attain efficiency with the conventional technologies, so some people are looking for alternative method of farming. And today, Prime Minister spoke about natural farming in a function in state of Gujarat. Our Vice Chairman Niti Yog is very fond of natural farming, great supporter of natural farming. So people are looking for natural farming, and the main reason given is that this will help in reducing the cost. Other things also need to be weighed, that how much productivity, etc., will be there. But I would say that one of the strong factors for looking for the alternative method of farming is that we are not able to improve efficiency of our agriculture. There are other reasons also, chemical, health effect, etc. But most important economic reason is that we are not able to improve efficiency of production. And efficiency of agriculture will not improve unless we go for precision farming, unless we go for agri-tech solutions. These agri-tech solutions are not coming from agricultural institutions. I challenge them, though I worked in that system for a long time. But I challenge them that, that in my view, the next major source of growth and next revolution in agriculture will come from non-agriculture institutions. It will come from non-agriculture sciences. Except biotechnology, I don't see many innovations, technological breakthrough happening in agricultural such institutions. So it then take me to data science, that we look at everything. One is that we can have precision farming using better machinery, those kind of things. But data science is another, as explained by my friend Andre, that this is another kind of mechanism, other kind of tool, which tell you that how you can improve your practice without involving any machinery or like that, maybe you are told what is the optimum time for irrigation without changing everything. So you just use less irrigation like that. So as far as digitalization comes, I also feel that the benefit of digitalization multiplies when this data is shared with more and more data users. If it is confined only to government, if it remained with Krishi Bhavan or with the states, the benefits are very, very limited. The more you share the data, more is the possibility that benefit will accrue to the sector, not in arithmetic progression. I believe that it happens in geometrical progression. It multiplies the benefit if you start sharing the data. Then coming to how India is positioned for this, I will. This is the time I give to our pet, and she came. So if we look at India, we have a rich history of very good data, and that's why international organization used to do a lot of research in India. They used to call India as a lab for socio-economic research, because here very good system of this data was available. Coming to digitization, I will say that data can be put in two kind of classes. One is aggregate data, another is unit level data. Aggregate data we use for policy, macro decision making, and private sector also use that data. But real use of data, if we have to apply modern technique of data analytic, etc., it comes from unit level data, that whether we have data about specific fields, about specific farmers, about specific value chain participants. So real use comes from that. And in some cases, combining the macro data with or overlaying the macro data on the unit level data. Like, for example, if we want to say, advise the farmer what is the best date of sowing in a rain-fed situation, we need to have meteorological information also, that past historical data. So you use that aggregate data about that particular location, and you use the attribute of the farm, and then you give advice that this is the optimum date of sowing for this year, depending upon what is the forecast for monsoon, like that. So as far as unit level data is concerned, India was very secretive about unit level data till a few years back. But now we have opened up the data which is published by NSSO, whether it is consumption data, employment data, whether it is situation assessment survey data. So you just find that now unit level data is provided, and one can use it. So that is the possibility which has been created. Still, there is some secrecy in terms of departmental level or ministry levels data. They don't share even with one another. That is still there, but situation has changed a lot. So we also know that we have created data sets, soil health data set, which has created some possibilities. We have data on fertilizer sale, some information about farmers. We have this Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai, like that. Now we have this data in digital form from couple of sources. Some data related to some aspect is there. Then we have data at state level, land record, land use data, what kind of cropping pattern, etc., etc. So then combining these with the meteorological data, market data, prices data, soil series data, one can come out with many solutions which can lead to optimal allocation of resources, efficiency, etc., etc. So when we use this data, you see, we have in India suddenly started talking to use this data, which is available, without reorienting the data for use by the data analytics and data sciences. We just feel that this data is there, therefore it can be used, but there are specificity of every data set in India. The kind of concept is used, you will find that a lot of variation is there. This is what will make use of data difficult or misleading by agrotech firms. And this is very important. I'm just what I'm saying, because I'm user of data. I observe it. Like if today, some of you might have read yesterday paper by Siraj Hussain and Sweta Saini on what is the income in different states. So they commented that average operational size of holding in Punjab was reported to be 3.5 hectares 4 years back by agriculture census data, but according to situation assessment data, it is only 1.5 hectares. So why this difference? So because there are different type of concepts which are being used in the two situations, and the situation assessment survey says that we define agriculture household as a household where at least one person is engaged in agriculture activity, not necessarily crop production activity. and they have produced worth 3,000 rupee or 3,600 rupee, which can come from any other source, livestock, forestry, and like that, not necessarily based on crop production. So these are the specificities. Since earlier we didn't have these data sciences, so we didn't care that that we should care about correspondence between two sets of data, so that they can be related, the pattern in two can be related. Only then we can make best use of data. But there are situations like this. The second situation, maybe Shiv Kumar ji, you are aware of it, that fertilizer sale data. So sometime back, I was just asking them that I want to do some policy work. So I just want to see the data. And they gave me data about very limited number of farmers. So I told them, in our country, agriculture census stage, we have 14 crore farmers. These other kind of sources like NSSO data says actual cultivating household are 10 crores, but you are telling me that only 3-4 crore farmers only buy fertilizer. It's not possible, because fertilizer use is not that less. So then they just told me that sometime one farmer come, he buy fertilizer for 10% or for the entire village, and proper recording is not there. So these example I am not giving to point out that there are weaknesses of that data. That data was not required to take care of these kind of things, that it must reflect the individual transactions. So these are the, I think, some of the specificities, but with pressure coming from the user that they require data in this form, the data collection institution and agencies, I think, will adjust their approach to this requirement. Another brief point I want to make is that a lot of theoretical work in the area of whether it is AI, data analytic, blockchain, etc., but very little work on how these kind of things will be applied on ground. I in Niti Yog get so many requests from people that they want to come and show to me. They have a wonderful method. They came with some great alternative, and their technology should be used. So when they come, and I find that they have designed their entire things for an ideal situation, thinking about ideal situation. The moment I ask them two questions, their entire model collapses. So you just find that it can't be taken beyond that. It happened with very, very reputed firms who are dealing with data, that once I just countered them. So I'm saying these things not to show that I can question them, just to show that combining domain expertise and data expertise is very, very important. Data expert need to sit with the domain expert to understand the situation of agriculture, to understand the environment in which problem is to be addressed, to understand nature of the problems, whether it is amenable to a particular data analytics that we are talking, or it is not amenable to that, is very, very important. And right now, so many people come with the solutions, but I find that this solution, most of them, not all of them, they just don't work in the practical situation. So we have to, this is mainly because data experts do not have domain expert, and interactions are very less. We need to increase the interaction between two. That is very, very important to my mind. Lastly, I just want to say that we are also in Niti Yog trying to see these things. We tried about application of AI in assaying of turmeric in one market, and there were some results. So I was interested that FCI, when they have to buy rice, there is always dispute whether it is correct or not. For sugarcane buying, there is always a dispute. My sugarcane contains 12% juice, but you are saying it is only 9%. So I wanted that this AI technique should be applied there. So we did it in turmeric where it worked well, but if you take it to sugar cane, paddy, you imagine the application which will be increased. So Shiv Kumarji, I think CII should organize one seminar on what are the areas where AI can be applied. Like I gave you example, if you can do saying of sugarcane quality, what is juice into it using AI, you reduce the problem of dispute to zero. Similarly, in paddy and everything else, you reduce that problem. So these are some areas where we need to work. So after finding all these things, we have taken two initiatives. One is that we have set up a Agri-Tech committee. I have taken people from university, from private sector, Vadwani group and others. So we are just talking with them. We will involve more people also just to understand what is expertise available them and their interaction with the domain experts so that two can understand each other. And secondly, we found that because of these specificity of data, sometimes it is not cannot be used as such. We are creating one NDAP, National Data Analytic Portal. So drawing from different data, though Ministry of Agriculture is having much broader data, but we are doing not only for agriculture, for various sectors, taking data from METI and other places, and percent of NRI, she is involved in those kind of things. So this is another effort which is going on. So lastly, I want to say that there are very good example of advances in digital science, in delivery, and in improving governance. They are already there. You find they are there in Karnataka, they are there in Tamil Nadu, reside many places in governing and delivery system. But so far, very little at the farm level. So this benefit, which right now is at small level, we can take it to much higher level. So I feel that this kind of discussion will lead to harnessing real potential of application of data sciences in agriculture. The attempts have already started. It has started with the Ministry of Agriculture. It has started with private sector. We need to take it to next stage by arranging all interaction among, as I already mentioned, experts and data experts and domain experts, and also put pressure on data collection agency to reorient their system to serve the requirement of application of data sciences. So these are some of my comments, and I hope they will make some sense to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh Chand. I think many pearls of wisdom there in terms of the broad spectrum. What are we looking for achieving in agriculture, and the role that data can play, and many points that you summarized yourself at the end, so I won't necessarily repeat them. But the interesting observation that you made, just to open a segue for my next speakers, I'll repeat, which is that Agri-Tech solutions will come from non-agri institutions for the next round. And I'll just use as a segue to now request our two speakers, Mr. Ranveer Chandra from Microsoft, and thereafter Mr. Anand Patil from Cisco, to share their perspectives. While they have experience now in agriculture with the kind of project that they are doing, but essentially from the vantage point of an outsider into everything that we discussed in agriculture and what they have seen, what could really be done leveraging technology in this space, and what role, whether it's a hardware, software, any of these can play. First, Mr. Ranveer Chandra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shiv Kumar, and good evening, everyone. It's morning here in Seattle. I'm calling from here. So my background, I'm from Microsoft, and I really love the comments Professor Chand you just made, and they were really, it resonated a lot with what we do. So to give a little bit of background about myself, I'm a technologist. I grew up in Jamshedpur, studied in Kharagpur, came here after that, did my PhD in computer science, joined Microsoft Research. I've been publishing actively in computer science. I serve as the CTO for agriculture food. This was because I started a project here around 6 years back called FarmBeats, which I started. And the reason I started it was because growing up, I used to spend every summer and winter vacation with my grandparents, who used to live in this farm close to Bhagalpur in Bihar. I spent a lot of time going there and spending my summer and winter vacations with them. I did not enjoy those summer and winter vacations, by the way, just to be completely honest. These villages, they did not have any electricity. They did not have any toilets. But that's where I spent the first 18 years of my life growing up, learning how to ride a bike, playing kabaddi and things like that. So that is my background. I'd seen, even though I did not enjoy that time in the villages, it did teach me a lot about agriculture, about poverty and things like that, which I wanted to address through my research. So I started this project here at Microsoft called FarmBeats, which was all about data-driven agriculture. How do you bring down the cost of data-driven agriculture? Our vision is the following. When I started this project, I went and I volunteered in multiple farms, mostly here, just to see the life of a farmer here from morning till night. What I realized was that these farmers, they work a lot. They know a lot about their farm. There were farmers who could feel the soil and say what's going on. There was a farmer, one farmer could taste the soil. He would say, this is what is going on in the farm. These guys have been farming for several years, in some cases even generations. Even though they knew a lot about their farm, a lot of decisions they took about the farm was based on guesswork, like when to plant, when to harvest, a lot of things that Professor Chand was saying. And that is where, with all the things we are learning in computer science, is the value of data and AI. If we could augment a farmer's knowledge with data and AI, we can really help them be more productive. They can grow more. They can reduce the amount of inputs that they use. And this could also help them practice sustainable agriculture. So that was the vision of FarmBeats. With FarmBeats, what we decided to do was to build these data-driven agriculture solutions to enable the farmers to do more. So at Microsoft, so then I wrote a bunch of papers, worked with researchers, and Mr. Sivkumar, it wasn't just computer scientists doing it. I partnered very closely with people who understand agriculture, professors in agriculture companies, and we built a platform called Azure FarmBeats, and we are partnering with agriculture companies in this space to build these data and AI solutions for growers. Our vision is to enable to bring AI to remove guesswork from a farmer's life, to help them take these decisions based on data and AI. So what are we doing at Microsoft? At Microsoft, we are a very partner-led organization. We are not building solutions for the farmer. What we are building is a platform for any agriculture or ag tech company to build their solutions on top. With Azure FarmBeats, we are making it easy to acquire large amounts of data from different varieties. These are data from the farm, data that this could be satellite data, this could be data from sensors, from drones, from tractors, from weather stations. And then we bring it all together and then allow you to write AI on top. We provide some AI components, but we allow others to bring their artificial intelligence components on top to build these advisories for the growers. Like, to give you an example, why do we need AI here, right? So suppose I give you a simple question. So if you have a farm, what is the soil moisture level 6 inches below the soil throughout the farm? If you have to build an accurate map, you would need to have to put a sensor every 10 meters, because we all know, well, soil moisture varies from row to row. Similarly, soil carbon. But putting a sensor every 10 meters is going to be super expensive. It's going to be expensive to deploy, to manage. It'll come in the way of the farmer. The ROI is not there. So then this is one of the places where we use AI, where what if you could, instead of putting lots of sensors, what if I put very few sensors in the farm and then use aerial imagery to interpolate this data to predict these values throughout the farm? So one of the things we built, we wrote a research paper on this, where if you put a few sensors, wherever you have a sensor and you have a pixel of imagery, use that to train the model, and then you use that trained model to predict these values in other parts of the farm. We wrote a paper where we showed that this can be up to 3 times more accurate than existing schemes that do not use AI, that do not use this multimodal way of interfacing these different streams of data. We did a similar, another use of AI we did was a paper we published this year on microclimate prediction. You know, for a farmer, you all are the experts here, farmer, for them, weather is a super important piece of information. But the weather that they want to look at is weather in the farm, not necessarily the weather in the weather station, which could be different. So one of the papers we wrote, and we've trialed this with several agriculture companies, but also with the renewable companies, is a way where if you put a low-cost sensor in the farm, we use the predictions at the weather stations to then start making very hyper-local predictions of what's happening in the farm. And this is, again, something which we've deployed with a farmer here in Eastern Washington. He was looking to spray chemicals in his farm. There was a part of the farm that had a lot of weeds. He wanted to spray herbicide. He looked at the weather forecast. The weather forecast said that it was going to be 42 degrees in the farm. I'm talking in Fahrenheit, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. It was actually, we said it would be 31 degrees. It was actually 30, which was below freezing. It was good he didn't spray chemicals in the farm, otherwise it would have killed all his crop. So these are just some examples of where AI can really help a grower. And similarly, there are computer vision scenarios, someone taking a picture of the farm and you telling them what they could do. These are all possible with AI. So with Azure FarmBeats, what we've done is as I said, it's a very partner-led offering. We work with the data itself comes from partners. We've partnered with various companies such as Davis Instruments, DTN for weather. We pull data from John Deere tractors. We bring all of that in this platform layer, and then we allow you to fuse these different data streams. Say the data from a satellite with data from a tractor, what all information could you bring with it? That's if you fuse the information from weather stations with satellites, with sensors, if you start combining these, you can start enriching it and start creating a lot more information about the farm. We've done several partnerships in the US. We partnered with the USDA. We partnered with Land O'Lakes, which is one of the biggest cooperatives in the US, where they are building their AgTech solutions on top of Azure FarmBeats. For the emerging markets, we partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture in Indonesia. We partnered with them to help bring a lot of digital solutions to growers there. All that is great. I just wanted to point out that there's still a lot more work that needs to be done to bring the benefits of digital agriculture to smallholder farmers. We just wrote a paper. I wrote this paper with the Gates Foundation, Stuart Collis there, on some of these challenges that are very unique to bringing digital agriculture for smallholder farmers, which do not exist when we work with the big farms in the rest of the world. And these are a lot around affordability. That is one of the points that Professor Chand pointed out was data. Well, you need good data. If you need good data, you need good connectivity. You need good internet. This is something that gets lost behind the scenes. If you don't have, and the thing is that close to, if you look at a worldwide view, close to 40% of the world still doesn't have internet access. A large part of it is because it is not affordable. The other problem that exists with internet access is that a lot of the people who are not connected to the internet are women. There is a big problem there with the digital divide, and we all need to fix it. So even when we talk of digital agriculture, we talk of sustainability, we need to keep in mind that we need affordable connectivity, for which we have, like 5G is great, but 5G by itself, it's not necessarily affordable for a lot of the people who we are talking about when we talk of digital agriculture. Similarly, the other problem here is we don't have all the good data to drive the AI. Usually when we talk of artificial intelligence, the AI is only as good as the data. If the data is not clean, if the data is not good, your AI won't be good. There'll be a bias in the data sets. And that is going to hurt much more than not even using it. It's better to not use AI than use really bad data to start to train your model. So that's something where we need some sort of governance around how do you use the data, whether that data is good in the first place. So these are some of the things that we write in the paper. I would refer anyone in the audience to go check out this paper. It was in the Communications of the ACM, which is a #1 computer science magazine, which wrote a paper in the December issue. But to conclude, I wanted to point out that I'm super bullish on the aspect of how technology can benefit agriculture and can benefit food. In my group right now at Microsoft, we look at multiple industries. We look at energy, financial services, retail. All of these industries are further ahead when they look at data and AI. In fact, there was a study done, some of you might know about it. This was done a few years back. I think it was McKinsey that did it, which looked at 23 different verticals, industry verticals, in terms of digital transformation. This included financial services, retail, mining, and all of that. Agriculture was ranked last, paired with hunting. And this is a global view with respect to digital transformation. And this is, on the one hand, we can say, well, we are really lagging, but on the other hand, this is an opportunity to do the right thing and help leapfrog agriculture as an industry vertical. So for people who are even in the audience, would love to talk to you, learn more about the problems and see ways in which technology can play a role. Part of it is in the growing part of agriculture, part of it is in creating the right digital linkages, the market linkages. But I think overall, both data, once you get the data, and the artificial intelligence can help bridge a lot of the problems that exist with agriculture and farming today, making the lives of farmers, if they start using data and AI, their lives will become much better. They will be more productive. And it will also help save the planet. Because agriculture and sustainability, I missed Andre's talk, but I think he talked a little bit about sustainability. Agriculture and sustainability are very coupled in the sense that agriculture is one of the biggest, if I just think of climate change as one of the pillars, agriculture is one of the biggest causes of climate change because of the amount of emissions that agriculture has. At the same time, agriculture is most impacted by climate change as well, because the farmers, and especially the smallholder farmers who've been doing the same thing year over year, if there is abrupt climate change, the farmers will be impacted the most. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, the third thing, is that agriculture could be a solution to climate change. If the farmers do the right thing, they can help pull some of the carbon from the air back into the soil. And they could be the custodians, not just for the food that we eat, but for the entire planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anvichandra. Certainly many exciting possibilities there, and wonderful to hear your many experiments and the thoughts there. And the questions you raised on how do we deliver it to smallholder farmers, given the potential connectivity challenges and cost of data acquisition and those kind of areas will lead me to our next speaker, Mr. Anand Patil of Cisco. Hopefully, among other things that he'll share, he'll throw some light on these challenges that Ranveer pointed out. Over to you, Anand.
Thank you, Mr. Shivkumar. I'd also like to start by thanking CIFAC for inviting me to be a part of this session. Thanks to my fellow speakers, all the other delegates from CIA, and obviously to the audience for joining us today. We all know India is primarily an agrarian economy. We have over 50% of the country's population that is reportedly working in the agriculture sector. But even then, farmers constitute one of the most underserved and underconnected economic groups in the country, to the point that Ranveer was just making. So let me start with some data of a different kind. According to the Department of Agriculture, the farming sector's contribution to India's GDP is only 18% today. Over the last 2 decades, the real income of small farmers in India has fallen by over 30%. And most of that has been due to weather-related yield shortfalls, and combine that with the lack of access to technology. So a few months ago, we worked on a report with NASSCOM, and we came across more startling data. 87% of farms in India are less than 3 acres in area. Over 45% of farmers in India are actually tenant farmers. Less than 1% of farms, and this is important, less than 1% of farms actually use tractors. Smallholder farmers comprise 70% of the agricultural workforce, and over $14 billion of post-harvest produce is wasted, is lost. And still we have 300 million people in India that live in the scarcity of food. So the need of the hour really is, how do we plug these gaps? And we really have a potential to plug these gaps by offering technological innovations to mitigate roadblocks at every level. Digital technologies, digitalization, has the potential to improve the income of these farmers, to the points that the eminent speakers before me made. They can be used to provide tailored recommendations based on things like crops, planting dates, varieties that were sown, real-time weather, projected market prices, and so on. So there is hope. Mr. Vijay Rajmohan and Mr. Jayesh Ranjan spoke about what the government is doing in taking the lead on these. But it is also projected that the agri-tech industry in India will grow to a staggering $24 billion in revenue by the year 2025. and the current penetration is only 1%. Now, the rest of the country has undergone a tremendous amount of digital transformation, which was especially accelerated by this pandemic. And India currently ranks second in the world in terms of the number of internet users. We have over 560 million of them. So there is real potential there. And our proclivity towards technology leads me to believe that access, challenges with access, uptake, usage, they're only going to reduce over time. Now, the other thing that is also happening in India, which is interesting, is that there's a huge surge of startups. We saw some of them at the beginning of the session, and a lot of them are emerging in the agri-tech space. There are more than 450 Indian startups today in the agri-tech space. And just within the first 8 months of this year, these startups, these agri-tech startups, raised over $425 million, which is 3 times of what they had raised over the entire year of 2020. So with this, I believe that a sun awaits to help Indian farmers improve their productivity and efficiency by using digitalization. And with this lies great possibility of a change in the agricultural economy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Cisco is doing in this space. At Cisco, our purpose as a company is to power an inclusive future for everyone, for all. From increasing access to skills that are needed to thrive in a digital economy, to supporting the most vulnerable in times of crisis. We're committed to using technology for social good, and it goes beyond profits to benefit our employees, our communities, and also the planet. So a couple of examples of this. For example, we are working with the Kerala State IT Mission to bring the benefits of smart agriculture to the farmers of Kerala. And we're doing this with of course, ecosystem partners, but a lot of what we're using is data stores and IoT sensors. And with that, we deliver a lot of the capabilities that we've already spoken about, which is insights into all kinds of data. We also recently signed an MOU with the Ministry of Agriculture, as Mr. Rajmohan mentioned. And this is for the deployment of Cisco's Agri-Digital Infrastructure solution in 2 remote districts in the states of Madhya Pradesh and Haryana. Here, we'll be helping the administration with key insights on things like crop forecasting, local, hyper-local weather patterns, plant disease patterns, soil quality, moisture content of the soil, and so on and so forth. And over the last few years, we also invested in early stage solutions in a sustained manner with social incubators like the Nudge Foundation. And we took the same philosophy forward in the Cisco Agri Challenge. So the Cisco Agri Challenge is actually a platform which attempts to draw talent, technology, capital, and attention to the most pressing issues of small farmers which were impacted by the pandemic. Issues like land, crop, infrastructure, market fulfillment, social protection, like that. And the aim of this Cisco Agri Challenge is to positively impact 10 million lives by the year 2025. And we want to do this by mobilizing agri-tech startups to innovate solutions with a chance to win a prize money of 2 crore rupees. So just last week, we announced 8 finalists, startups that were finalists in this challenge. And I was privileged enough to be a part of the selection jury, where I had the opportunity to witness the groundbreaking innovation that is being showcased by these startups. Ranveer spoke about 5G. India is staring at a 5G revolution in the next couple of years. And the Agri Challenge, I believe, comes at an opportune time for us to prepare solutions that will become use cases with connectivity like 5G for agriculture that India can bank upon. So the aim of Cisco CSR is to create such digital public goods that lead to digital acceleration of the social sector, in this case, the agricultural sector. And this will be a testament to India's commitment to building an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anand Patil. I think some of the examples you shared are very relevant in this context. So with that, we really come to an end of 3 days of very exciting deliberations on AgTech for transformation of agriculture. the goals that we are looking at are big, whether it is nutritional security for the expanding population, or higher incomes for the farmers, or more sustainable agroecology. I mean, all three are really big goals. And what we have witnessed is many interesting solutions leveraging technology that can really enable transformation. And certainly, after looking at all of these, I have great optimism that however large these goals look, certainly they are achievable when we make use of the technology. I think this session as a wrap-up really brought out the importance of multi-stakeholder collaborations, the role of the whole data governance in interoperable standards, as also the role of the state and the private sector players in bringing these solutions. And very interesting work that is happening from otherwise people who are not conventionally involved in agriculture. I think coming together all of this is something that really holds optimism. And let me thank everyone who contributed to the thought process, and particularly from this session, Professor Ramesh Chand, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Mr. Vijay Rajmohan, Mr. Andre Leber, and Mr. Ranveer Chandra, and Mr. Anand Patil. Special thanks to all of you. For some of you, it's early in the morning, and for the rest of us here, late in the evening, for sparing your time and really engaging and sharing your perspectives. I think CII will certainly engage with each of you, and the offer of partnerships and collaboration that all of you have extended certainly will be pursued and taken forward. And the inflection point at which we are in, irrespective of what where the sector was standing versus where the sector can be going forward, I think looking at that inflection point on that optimistic note, I would like to close out this session. Thank you very much.